I'm Phyllis, and welcome to my Southern Simply Kitchen garden today. We have a little garden planted around our patio, and this year we're growing some new potatoes. And so I've been out here scratching around under the plants and gathering some new potatoes. And so to do that, you just come over to your plants, and you need good loose soil, and you just start digging around and sticking your fingers down there, and you know what, you'll find a potato every once in a while. And here's one, and there we go. Let me get it. There we go. Got it from that plant, and we have nice potatoes out here. They're a good size, and so we're going to go in and start cooking on these potatoes. I need to give them all a good rinse while I'm outside, get all this good dirt off of them, and then we will be cooking in the kitchen. So I'll see you in my kitchen in just a few minutes. Okay, I'm in from the garden, or my patio garden, as you can see, and I've got my potatoes here. We've washed them, and I've got them ready. You'll see some places where the peeling has come off. These have only been out of the ground like 15-20 minutes most, and you see how the peeling will just come right off if you are touching it, or if you run the water too harshly when we were washing them outside at the hose, and sometimes the little peeling will come off. But when you get them in, wash them again, and if you find any bad places, or if you find some of the eyes or sometimes have dirt down in them, and sometimes you just trim those off, because it's not worth trying to get all the little dirt brushed out of it, because you'll just be brushing the skin and everything off of it. So I just trimmed those little spots, and these there were a couple of them had some little brown spots, so I just trimmed it off. You trim off what you don't want to eat. So anyway, I have my potatoes. This is 2.5 pounds, just over that. I guess I have a pretty good eye about how many potatoes I need. And then to cook our potatoes, what I use, and this is my method, my mom was doing this in the latter part of her years as she tried to eat a little healthier. We're going to use 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon, or chicken yeah, it's a bouillon, but this is the powdered bouillon, not the little cubes, or either you could use 2 cubes. I've got a heaping 1/2 cup of chopped onion. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use some cornstarch near the end to thicken it. Have 3 cups of water and pepper, and that is what we need to get started. So while you're getting your ingredients together, I'll start dicing my potatoes. And then we'll come back and we will get started with our cooking. Okay, I've finished cutting up my potatoes. As you can see, I have them all cut in about pieces about the same size. That's the goal of it. And so we've got our 2.5 pounds of potatoes here in the pot, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my burner on medium-high. That's just to get it hot. And then I'm going to add my 3 cups of water. And water is according to how much you think you need. You don't have to cover the potatoes, because the potatoes are going to cook down and they're going to get soft. So it doesn't have to be totally covered. And then I'm going to add in my heaping 1/2 cup of onion. You can put more or less onion according to how much you like. And I've got my 2 tablespoons of butter. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of this bouillon powder. And I use the bouillon powder because I remember Vivian Howard from A Chef's Life saying one time, and I totally agree with this, if you're just cooking something in plain water, you're not adding flavor, and so you should try to add flavor always in all your things. So that's what I like to do. And then I'm going to put in some pepper, and of course pepper is just to taste, you know, so, but I like to have a generous thing of pepper in there. And so we are going to let this come to a boil BTB RTS, bring to a boil, reduce to simmer. And so that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to turn this to a simmer, and we'll let it cook about 20 minutes, and then we're going to check our potatoes. I'll put the lid on it when it comes to a boil, and then when I reduce to a simmer, I'll put the lid on the pot. So we'll be checking our potatoes in about 15-20 minutes. Okay, it's been 30 minutes since I left you. I let my pot come up to a boil, put the lid on, reduced to a simmer, and then I've let them simmer for 20 minutes. And so if you want to check your potatoes, you know that little cake tester you have in your gadget drawer that you never use, this is a good thing to use it for. And you just come over and just poke a few potatoes, and these are nice and done, perfectly done. And so then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to leave it cooking like that. And I have a tablespoon of corn, well, I guess my 20 minutes are up. I have a tablespoon of cornstarch that I've mixed with just some cold water, not from the refrigerator, just from the faucet. And then I'm going to add that here, and you just pour it and kind of stir it in a little bit, and keep adding some, and get all that cornstarch in there, and it will kind of thicken up your broth to make kind of like a gravy. I know lots of people that love to eat new potatoes over rice. My family, we usually made dumplings and put over the top of them. My grandmother, for my Aunt Louise's birthday, which May the 18th, she would always go out and see if she could find some new potatoes in the garden, and that would be the first time they got them, and they would she'd cook them for Aunt Louise's birthday. And so my Aunt Louise just turned 92, and so it was definitely time for us to be digging our little potatoes. So just a hint, so you'll know when your potatoes should be ready. So we're going to let this thicken up just a minute, and then it's time to serve them up. So we'll be back, and we will try these new potatoes. Okay, everything's ready. The potatoes have thickened up, and so I think we're ready to have a great taste. And I mean, just look at those potatoes with, I left the skin on. Now, if you get potatoes and the skin has dried on there, you may want to peel your potatoes. That's up to you if you want the skin on or not. And so I have my little potatoes here. And you can serve big portion, little portion, whatever you want. Then I like to put just a little bit of chives on the top, just because it looks pretty. And so these things are going to be so good. And remember, you go get your new potatoes out of the garden or at your produce stand. Now, the produce stand ones are not going to be quite as fresh as mine, but you may want to peel those. But you get about 2.5 pounds of potatoes, and to that you're going to add a ½ cup of diced onion, 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon powder or 2 bouillon cubes, or you could just use chicken broth, 3 cups of chicken broth instead of adding 3 cups of water. But I used water and the powdered bouillon, ½ teaspoon of salt, pepper to taste. Then we came back and thickened it with a tablespoon of cornstarch and some cold water. And mine was probably, you make a little slurry. So for a tablespoon of cornstarch, you probably add a tablespoon of water. And make your little slurry and add it to the pot, and then just let it cook a couple more minutes, and you have a pot of potatoes. So let's give these things a taste. And you might think you want to eat your new potatoes with a fork, but I suggest a spoon because you want to get every drop of goodness. And so, you're going to love this. Those nice little starchy, creamy potatoes. It's almost like having mashed potatoes in your mouth. You got that little buttery chicken broth that flavored it up, that's salted just right, just a little bit of onion to give you an extra flavor, and oh, it is just so good. It'll remind you of being back home on the farm, as it does me every year. So from my Southern Simply Kitchen to yours, enjoy.